So, tell me when I'm going to die. When? I'm playing.
I hope not in the next 5 minutes.
Yes. That would be awkward.
Oh, we are here. Curate Podcast Season 2, Episode 3 or something. I don't even know if we're going to put them in order, but who cares?
There's one on Netflix?
This is on Netflix. It drops right after Stranger Things.
What the health?
What the hell? Oh, we're going to talk about what the hell. Because I haven't watched it because all the people are like, oh my God, I'm vegan. I'm like, I ain't watching that. Anything that encourages me to be vegan is from the devil. I rebuke it in the name of Jesus.
What the hell? Come on. Oh my goodness. I'm going to get you watching.
This is gonna be a challenging podcast for me, man, because this is gonna be bad.
Do we have with
I just added queso in my burrito when I didn't need to. I added it in the burrito.
We can talk vegan queso.
Okay. Well, before we start talking about how unhealthy I am, want to welcome the guests, welcome the viewers and listeners. On your way to work, whenever you listen to this, sleeping or on the bathroom taking a crap. Welcome. Thank you for watching and listening. Edwin, how are you doing today? How are we doing? Good?
Great.
I like that shirt, man.
Thank you. You told me
that's a nice texture to it.
Like it.
I lied. That was off camera. Bullcrap talk.
No, so I did not add queso to my burrito. So.
Oh, good job.
Thank you.
Your burrito was kind of boring, though, man. You have to add a lot of hot sauce to it. You wasn't feeling it.
I'm like that.
It was kind of dry, bro.
I like just like cheese.
Cheese is crack, bro. That's what I tell people.
Yo, hashtag cheese is crack.
Cheese, and that's pretty much it. That's all I put on it. So
yeah, that's pretty lame. You gotta enjoy life a little bit.
So
Yeah, add some cheese in your life, man.
cheese.
Yeah. Well, everything good?
Everything's great. Yeah, for sure.
You got some nice little Birkenstocks on.
These are Birkenstocks. I got these from Target.
Dang, bro.
Check those out.
Shouts out to the Germans.
Yeah.
For making this. It's German, right?
Oh, Birkenstock.
it sounds German.
Birkenstock. Like, how did it?
No. Was that an insensitive thing? Birkenstock with a German
Yo, I
accent?
stopped myself halfway.
You're like, yeah, you were
Birkenstock. That's it.
Birkenstock. That's what it sounded like you were going to say.
Like
Moving on to the German woman here. How's it going?
They are well crafted.
Right. I'm doing great.
You doing
So
good?
happy to be here as always.
I just want to let the people know we got to get your husband on here soon because he's freaking hilarious.
He's hilarious.
He's back there somewhere. But dude, that kid's he's not a kid. He's actually a Gen Xer actually. But he's a funny dude.
He's got some well calculated word choices. He's a good dude to have around.
Funny.
Really well calculated, bro.
Because he's a math professor. For those of you who don't know, that was good. Dr. Tashner.
Hey.
You go to school for this? Because there's that guy Malachi Love who was practicing in Florida without a license.
He's a Gator.
Biggest hustler.
Whoop, whoop.
Biggest hustler of 2016 was this young 17-year-old kid who had his own practice. Malachi Love, the black guy with the bald head.
Who was going to a doctor?
He would write his own practice. I can't believe this should be up on your wall. He should be your inspiration.
Yeah, he is.
He was in jail now. He
could have spent 8 years.
But he got caught. And then he came back and did it again, but he came back as a gynecologist. I'm not making. I promise you, I'm not making this up.
I'm making myself.
He's a smart guy. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The hustler of the year. But anyways, before we introduce this healthy man here, but you could probably know you can be unhealthy. I'm gonna ask you. This episode is sponsored by our good friends at Wicked Dolphin. Alcohol is good for you, right?
We can all do shots at the end here.
At the end,
we like him
right now.
We gotta get some good. Well, I already have myself poured up.
You have the
We don't have any cup. We don't have any cups for you.
You got the cocoa nut.
If you wanna
We
be
need a cup sponsor.
Yeah, we do, but the cups are dirty.
Don't say that, bro. You're not supposed to say that. All you had to do was
Watch the cups. All right.
I like Big Blue Brewery too.
Oh, shouts out to Big Blue.
Yeah,
they didn't sponsor us, so we'll just give you a little bit of that.
They're the
But
same
Wicked
people.
Dolphin.
Are they?
Yeah, they're the same people.
It's the same owner, right?
Yeah.
But if Big Blue wants to get on this too, you know.
All right. We've got some vegan options. So.
Oh.
Do we? Okay. So
Moving on.
Narrative Coffee as well. Thank y'all. Shouts out to the white dreaded man. And I never shout out the other two. I know Mason and there's someone else. I forgot who it is. It's Mason. Shout out to Mason. They're literally roasting coffee in their garage, and it's amazing. It's called Narrative Coffee because every cup of coffee, every package has a story to it, meaning that they tell you exactly who farmed your coffee and everything. So whatever. I don't want to say names because it's going to be racist, but you know that Joe the plumber. I was going to say Julio. That would
Or
be
it
messed
could be
up. Right?
Jose from Honduras.
Yeah, or it could be like from Kenya, you know,
Right.
whatever.
That's good.
So where can we get this coffee?
You could go online, narrativecoffee.com.
Coffee roasters, all right.
Yeah, Narrative Coffee. Go on their Facebook,
It smells so
Instagram,
good.
all that good stuff. We have here today healthiest man in the world.
Oh boy.
Wow.
At least in this room.
The first time I think I actually had a conversation with you was no, wasn't I?
What's his name? Can you stop
I'm doing the Sway in the Morning intro, man. God, man, you messing up the Sway intro.
I'm so
It
sorry.
may have been Gabby's wedding.
Was that Gabby's wedding? Oh, might have been. Yeah, I thought you were part of the family, man. You look kind of like them. Like you have
I'm
the
trying to fit.
exotic look. Pause on that.
Surrogate dad.
So I think I met you a couple times. You're a great dude. I think I actually came to your office one time and saw you at work. You were like doing some surgery or something. But we have Dr. Brian Tashner up in the building. All right, sorry.
Great introduction.
Yeah, she messed it up. I wasn't feeling it.
I'm so sorry.
We're trying to
I ruined
invest in
your
a
intro.
soundboard so we can do
They
it.
should start doing that when I go to work in the
Dude,
morning. That
you
would
walk
be
in,
We
amazing.
just show up.
Yeah.
What? Yo, you know what you should do? You should you should like put like this little heart monitor and people like everyone put like a little heart thing in his heart. So when you walk in, you press the button, and everyone, oh God, it gets really excited because you're a cardiologist, right?
Yeah, I am.
So you should connect when you walk in to
Transition.
people's hearts.
Smooth.
You saw that?
Try to be the non-traditional cardiologist. But yes, it's a good idea, though.
So, Dr. Taschner, thank you for being here today. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.
I wanted to get you on because I think you have a lot of, like I said, I think you have a lot of information to give just about health and nutrition and how it relates to millennials. So we'll kind of go wherever. But, dude, what made you start off? Like, what made you want to be a doctor, man? Was that like what you wanted to be when you were younger?
Yeah, I had a good idea when I was younger. Probably in high school, I had a lot of problems with asthma growing up. And
Same.
It's, same thing.
Yeah.
So thankfully, I've outgrown it. It's pretty close to my doctor. He's a family friend, and a number of our family friends were physicians. And I think I had the science, math fine. I'm not right-brained at all. I'm a horrible singer. I can't draw. So eventually, I was thinking medicine, and I started exploring that path in college, and eventually got into med school. So I was lucky. Really hard.
Where did you go to school?
University of Florida.
U.S.
Gators.
Yeah, both undergrad and
Yeah.
med school.
Can't
So
trust that, huh?
I'm lucky now to be on their medical alumni board, which is a very cool experience because I get
that's
to
awesome.
have some impact on what's happening there in the future, and I'm bringing new students in. So it's a really cool experience. And my wife, we met in med school, so it's great that I went there.
Oh, what does she do?
She's a pediatrician.
Very cool.
Yeah, so
It's medical.
opposite ends of the spectrum.
You guys probably just save yourselves when you're sick. You just like you probably just inject each other with stuff.
Honey, just look at my ears. I don't know how to do that.
Do you like treat yourself when you get sick? Like, is that what y'all do?
I really don't, because you're probably your worst enemy if you try to take care of
Right.
yourself.
So you go to a doctor.
I do. I try. I don't go very often. Fortunately, I haven't been sick that often.
Really?
So usually I just try to ride things out. Yeah.
So do you?
But I do most of my
You just
stuff
said
is
du-
orthopedic.
You just said doo-doo. Sorry,
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't let that slide.
Cannot.
Back in the
Can't.
race, rewind. Most of my stuff's, health maintenance, like dermatology, getting my moles checked, and orthopedic stuff,
Like regular stuff.
exercise injuries. So fortunately, I've not had any major illnesses this year. Been lucky.
Nice.
So you pretty much know, because sometimes I feel like going to the doctor's a waste of time when you're sick. It's like, all right, I know you're going to tell me just to do this and do this. Why did I even come here? When really I'm just coming for the drugs. I know that sounds bad. But I need the antibiotics. I need to come with antibiotics. But I can't just go get antibiotics. So I have to go to the doctors to get antibiotics when I know what the problem is. Is that correct, or should I still go to the doctors? Like,
So there's two things I'll comment on. One is, one of the things I want to address is you shouldn't go to a doctor just when you're sick. We want to keep people healthy. So we have to change the paradigm of how people think about doctors. Because our system traditionally has been, when you're sick, you go to a doctor.
Right.
But we really need to focus on keeping people healthy. And in terms of the antibiotics, yes, I think a lot of people, they come in, they want their antibiotics, they want their pain pills, they want their blood pressure medicines. I think it's our job to figure out who actually needs those things. We don't want to, when you talk about antibiotics, there's a lot of antibiotic resistance now from overprescribing to the point where a lot of them are probably going to be ineffective in the near future. And, there's a huge epidemic with pain medications, opioids. So it's a tough challenge as a doctor. You want to make patients happy, you want to make them feel well, but you want to keep them safe, and you want to keep the population safe and healthy in general.
Yeah. Man.
So you may not always need them.
May not always.
I like that. I see a Chinese medicine doctor actually. So it's all about the preventative. How can we get to the root cause and prevent things from happening?
Give you herbs and spices.
No spices.
Sprinkles green tea.
But yes, some herbs for sure.
No, that's
some acupuncture.
I think that's great. A lot of the alternative medicines. And we were in India a few years ago. My wife's Indian, and we went to go visit. They have the Ayurveda, which is really cool. All sorts of spices and herbs that they rub all over you. That's how they keep you healthy.
It's called Ayurveda.
Ayurveda?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, it's a lot to get into, but it's really, really
They
cool.
rub it on you? You like inhale it?
I think they probably have drinks that you have. They have oils and lotions, and they all contain a specific herb that's supposed to treat or prevent certain ailments.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that it's more about health instead of like going to the doctors. What does that look like? What does that lifestyle look like instead? Because this is literally what I know is say go to the doctor, go to get medication, fix it, right? So I know people that again on different spectrums of like I don't take pain pills, I don't take this, and I'm like, bro, one little headache, one little I'm like. Boom.
Give me Tylenol.
It's gone, baby. Yeah, Percocet. Hey, well, sorry, I had to do it. So, what is that like? What does that lifestyle look like for someone to do that?
So for me, kind of how I started doing more of this lifestyle medicine is, as a cardiologist, we see a lot of the sickest of the sick patients. If you're in the hospital, almost everyone there, whether they're there for a heart problem or not, they have a heart problem. So we see a lot of these people, and what I was seeing is every year, every 6 months, I would see these patients over and over, and they're not getting any healthier. Most of them continue to gain weight. We may be doing a decent job controlling their blood pressure and their cholesterol, maybe even preventing a heart attack or stroke, but they feel miserable. They're still, they have no energy, they're short of breath, their joints hurt, and most of them, you look back at their lifestyle, and they're very overweight. I'd say 2/3 of my patients are obese or overweight. So even though we were making some progress in preventing untoward events, I wasn't making them feel better. And so one of my goals was to maybe try to use some alternative therapies to help these people, and also look at the younger generations, people that are now in their 40s and 30s and 20s, and even kids in elementary school, and start educating them on lifestyle measures that they can use to prevent turning into the patients I have now. But it's never too late to change. So what does a healthy lifestyle look like? I think in part it depends on who you ask, but I think there's some agreement on some general principles, and one of them is just what you put in your body. So making sure you have a healthy diet. One of the things that we turn to in our country, and actually in most westernized countries now, is we eat what's convenient, and what's convenient is always good. Cheese, for instance.
Yeah. I think cheese is always going to be convenient no matter what.
It is, and it's ubiquitous on everything. If I tell patients, cut back on the red meat, they're fine. Don't eat much sugar, they're fine. We mention cheese, it's like you're taking their oxygen away.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is oxygen, man. I mean, cheese will always be convenient even when it's inconvenient. Like, even if you put cheese on the top of a building, it's still convenient.
It's everywhere.
Do you I think it's always that. It's always like nutrition, right? It always starts at what are you putting in, and I hate that because I wish I could just like figure out a way to keep what I want.
You wish the things that taste good were not bad for you.
Yeah, why is it all things that are good? Why is everything gotta be that's good for you has to taste bad? It's like a relationship.
And that's the other thing. It's part of my job is
but that's not true.
I love to cook, and there are a lot of things that you can do with vegetarian or vegan cooking, or what we just say is plant-based cooking. I don't even like to use the word vegan because a lot of people, it turns them off right away from being healthy. But when I talk about plant-based, it's incorporating a lot of fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes. There's a great vegan
queso. You say legumes?
Legumes. It's like the beans, all the different kinds of beans. The kidney beans, the black beans.
Okay. So
I'm going to make you some vegan queso, and you are going to love it.
I need to try that too.
It's delicious.
What we're going to do is blindfold me and then have real people queso, and then like...
I'll tell you, my young son is super picky, and he loves it. And I made it, and he wouldn't stop eating. We're gonna do a cooking podcast.
Yes,
that's what we need to do.
Oh, I love it.
I like it, man.
We need to do that.
All right, bet.
Sorry, Josh.
So part of it is what you put in, and then part of it is activity. So that's the other part, and I think where a lot of my patients are now, they're so far past where they can stay active comfortably that it's hard to get them moving again. But if we could talk to people, at younger ages about making sure you get your exercise in, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to do CrossFit every day. It could be walking, it could be running, it could be swimming, or riding a bike, parking further from where you go to work every day.
Nah,
so
that's more inconvenient than cheese.
You are like the worst type of, honest to God.
Bro.
Under fire.
Take the stairs instead of
I feel like I want to speak for the people, like the young people, like, because that's our mentality is like, come on, bro, like
convenience.
Well, I tell myself that I'm gonna be unhealthy for now, but when I hit 30, I'm gonna get it right. Like I'm gonna be good.
But we see a lot of people now.
Nah, don't talk
heart attacks.
No.
I just had a patient that had a bypass, and he was 34.
Oh,
You're bad now.
So yeah, that's the truth.
All right. So thank you for coming.
One of the things about this generation, though, I think a lot of them are more sensitive in terms of, or aware of what they're putting in their body. I think there are more of them that are consumers looking for healthier stuff that tastes good.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of them in general are more active.
It's definitely easier now to be like vegan. I know so many people who, whether it's vegan or paleo or whatever, it seems like there's a lot of options and people are looking. And I think like the documentaries, I think those are very educational. I watched one on juicing like 2 years ago, and me, Gabby, Steph, and we all went on this juice craze.
The fat, sick, and nearly dead.
Yeah. So we watched it. I emptied out my whole fridge. I went to I'm telling you, I went to the farmer's market with them on a Saturday. I bought probably $200 worth of like vegetables and fruits. Bro, first off, I've never drank a juice up until that point. I'm literally about to go into a 10-day juice fast. No juice ever in my life. I'm cold, like going in cold. And then we drink our first juice. We're like, yeah, we're doing it. It was it was like beets, spinach. Bro, at that moment, I realized for the next 10 days, this is what I'm drinking.
Did you do it?
Hell no.
I think Gabby did it for free.
She did. No, this is what happened. That same day, we were watching a movie, and I started having an anxiety attack. I'm like, I need food, bro. I can't do this. I can't live my life like this. I went to Chipotle. I bought this crazy $250 juicer. I packed it up. I returned it. I went right to Chipotle and ate a lot of food, bro. And then the next day,
all beans.
Yeah, God. The next day, Gabby and Stefan took him to Rib City. We all had all this fruit. It was bad.
That's something that's been hard on me is like, especially in my culture, Hispanic culture, like
rice,
so beans, and pork.
Yeah,
and it's so
that
like
like a good meal.
See, and it's my wife and I, we've been considering going vegetarian, and it's just so hard. Like it's so hard, especially with our parents. They're like, "Oh, come over, we're having carne asada," and I'm just like,
so there are great substitutes. And first of all, I tell people you don't have to become a complete vegetarian. Some of it is cutting down on the meat and increasing the vegetables and the grains. That never has to be vegan or vegetarian. It's just trying to eat more of things that we know are good and less of things that maybe aren't as good for you. But there are, and that's, when we do our cooking segment, I'll show you. I actually made like a vegan barbacoa, which was amazing.
Wow.
And it was great. It was made up of lentils, and you use the right spices, and you slow roast, and you can make some really good stuff that you would love.
Right.
And there are different things to substitute. A lot of people use jackfruit to make barbecue. So there are different ways to still eat the same kind of foods that you like.
Sorry, I'm just being so...
I promise. But the other thing you brought up too was like spending $200. So a lot of people have concerns about the expense, but I mean, these things are much more accessible. There's farmers markets. There's Costco has You could go buy a big package of greens for $5. But here we have farmers markets everywhere. So that's one of the things I hear, and it's when you buy organic foods from like local restaurants or organic restaurants here. Part of what you're paying for is it's a little bit more time consuming. So you're paying people for their time. But it is nice that restaurants are actually starting to take notice. We're getting more and more that offer some vegan options or vegetarian options, or they're willing to work with you. So.
And that farm to table is a concept that people just absolutely love now.
For sure.
But for you and your wife, and like I know something that has been huge. I've been on this journey now for years, trying to get to the point where I'm like feel like I'm healthy, like I'm eating all the right stuff. It started with get rid of everything that had high fructose corn syrup in the house. That was step one. Then I've just taken these tiny steps here, and little by little, you just get to that point where it tips to the other side, and all of a sudden, you're doing more healthy things than you're not. And it takes time, but instead of saying we should just go vegetarian, just eat less meat. You know, do meatless Monday. Like just start.
And the less
slowly.
you eat, the less you're going to want to eat. I mean, that's kind of what I found. And a lot of it with vegetarian cooking is like prep. Like on the weekend, you might make some stuff in bulk. You gather stuff in bulk and you make it. And for rice, I mean, I know. Well, my wife's Indian, so I grew up in. You know, her family is always traditionally same with the culture. Eat a lot of rice and bread and butter and cream.
Oh, nice.
I have some Hispanic people in my office, and you know, when we talk about brown rice, and you know, it's not the same, and I understand that. So I try to introduce some of these other, you know, starches to them, and I think to some degree, I said, you know, have your white rice on make it a special treat. I have it twice a week, and try some of the orange rice, black rice, or wild rice, or brown rice. And I know it's not the same, but people can change, and your taste can change.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So is it really? Because here's the thing, everyone's saying like meat, you know, like, but didn't people live off of only meat forever? Like, so that's my thing is like, okay, we're doing, I guess the overall question is, are we getting healthier as a society? Obviously you have the fast food culture, right? No, so we're not. But it seems like with technology and information that we have like the farm to table, and there's a lot of like innovations with food, right? That we're able to go, oh, we can be more efficient in this, blah, 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 blah. But and the underlying question is, what did they do before to stay healthy, or were they not healthy back in medieval Game of Thrones time?
Well, people I think didn't live quite as long then. I don't want to vilify meat either. I mean, I think part of the issue now is how our meat's prepared. And first of all, people eat too much. I think they eat way too much animal protein, which they don't need to. So again, we should really focus on smaller portions. And I think a paleo diet is generally a pretty healthy diet too, because it incorporates a lot of nuts and seeds and vegetables. Takes away a lot of the processed foods and the dairy. But looking at the meat sources now and how the meat's produced, or what's happening to our oceans, which are overfished and polluted. So a lot of stuff out there isn't great. And actually, I learned this the other day. The food that provides the most sodium, what do you think it is in our country?
Sodium?
Sodium.
Oh.
I could ask you the number one and number two.
Oh, pizza.
It's chicken. It's chicken, because most chicken in the grocery store is injected with broth. Right? So you would never think that.
That's that good
stuff. So when we talk to our patients about limiting their sodium for blood pressure, number two is bread.
That was I was going to guess that.
Yeah, number two is bread. So, I mean, it's those sorts of things. Pizza is second for our saturated fat. Because
you just took away the best meal ever, Chick-fil-A. Chicken and bread.
So I just ruined it.
We just ruined it. But
one thing I was going to say was that, so there's this book called The Blue Zones, which I don't know if any of you have heard of that.
Yes.
You heard of that?
Yep.
So it's about this guy who traveled around the world and kind of found these healthy cultures where they have a greater proportion of people that live to 100.
Okay.
And he really found a commonality, and it was that they all kind of worked to get their food. So they were active. They all ate a diet that was high in vegetables, and typically some sort of bean, and it depended on the culture. Some of them were black beans, some of them were kidney beans, cannellini beans. They did eat some meat and some cheese, but they were usually from local farms in smaller quantities. And they all seem to have good social support, so a lot of family and friends involved. So when you look at those kind of principles, it's the activity, it's the mental well-being, and it's the vegetables and beans. All of them had this.
It's the community, it's surrounding. Because it's something like, so say, I saw you one time at CrossFit. And CrossFit is one of those things where I like to do it because it has the community around it, right?
Absolutely.
Or like the boot camps and any of the things. Thrive, even like the people that put the patches on. Like, it's like, to me, those things are just like, it's really just the community around it that's really like the thing that's driving you. Because for me, it's very hard to go to the gym by myself.
Right.
I'm just like,
it's very motivating to go with other people.
Yeah, but so it seems like what you're saying is that it's more just about, because even people, when they say you don't go on a diet, they say like make it your lifestyle, make it a part of who you are, and like, you know. So it seems like what you're saying is like community and lifestyle goes into like being healthier.
And if you're around those people and they're eating well and they're feeling great and they're looking good, you're gonna follow them. It's gonna be it's going to be contagious.
I surround myself with like fatter people than me, so I feel better. So, it's hard when I go back to New York though, and people are like, "Dang, bro, you're getting big." I'm like, "Hey, I ask you, bro."
Just haven't been doing CrossFit.
I've been bulking up, man. Trying out for NFL. No, but I mean that. I think
no one believes that ever.
Really, bro? Watch. I think that's encouraging for me to go like, all right, just find people who are going the same way you want to go, or that are going that way, and you know.
People who have done the switch too, like we all know somebody who has done it, who has gone from eating meat because that's how they were raised. I was raised in a Hispanic household where I ate very similar, and I had to completely change it. And my mom didn't know any better back then. So now she's like all about it. I tell her this is not as good as you thought it was. And she's like, okay, well then what's a good substitute? And now she's even healthier than I am, arguably, with how she eats. So it's, definitely surrounding yourself with people who have already done it.
I gotta ask you. So I haven't seen it because, again, I'm afraid to watch it. But have you seen What the Health?
I have.
As a doctor, I feel like this is where people are going to really listen. They're going to want to know, like, what is really What the Health about? Is it, and then, like, what is your take on it?
Yeah, so it's interesting. This, of all the documentaries that have been out there over the last 10 years, like the Forks Over Knives, and the Fats That Really Did, those really impacted me. But this one in particular, I don't know if it's because of how it was done. It's a kind of a young guy that was doing it. Maybe appeals more to this generation. I've had more people texting me and emailing me and Facebook messaging me about, I'm going, like you said, I'm going to be a vegan now.
Yeah.
So I think part of it was how it's done. I mean, I think that they really, they hit on 2 points. One was some of the unhealthy benefits of eating various animal proteins. The other part was, I want to say the government conspiracy, but the relationship that a lot of the food industry has with the government. So a lot of what, for instance, the USDA, and I think they touch on this here, they really have 2 jobs. One is to protect the farmers and the ranchers, but they're also giving us food guidelines. And that could be a dichotomous, it could be problematic for them because what they're telling us to eat isn't necessarily going to benefit the farmers and ranchers, but they need to try to appease both sides. So part of what they talked about, and the same thing with all these, the different societies, and I don't want to point on anyone in particular, but I will mention in the documentary, they talk about the Cancer Society, the Heart Association, et cetera, and they say, well, there's clearly data that shows that meat causes heart disease or meat causes cancer. And then the American Cancer Society on their website is saying, here's American Cancer Society diet, beef stew. So they're like, well,
healthy red meat.
And then they look and they say, well, the Beef Council is a sponsor of the Cancer Society.
That's dirty.
So it kind of goes back to, there's a lot of business relationships which might influence food recommendations, whether it's cancer or diabetes or heart disease. So he touches on that.
It seems, and I think that's one of my questions also about like just Florida in general. I've always heard that, obviously because it's a retirement population here. I've always heard that, like it's meant like I forgot what it exactly said, but it said that the doctors in Florida, the health system in Florida is meant to keep people in the hospital, like meant to keep them in there or in the hospital. Is that something that sounds familiar, or is that a conspiracy? Or
I don't think that's the case. I mean, I guess there's, and I don't know all the financial benefits that the hospitals receive when we have a patient. I mean, they obviously make money when patients are in there, but for the most part, we have a lot of guidelines which are incentivizing us to get patients out. And none of us want our patients in there any longer than they need to be. So, but yeah, I think in the history of medicine in the last 20, 25 years, I think that there has been some incentive to get people in the hospital to do procedures. And that's changing. The system's been changing to more of a quality-based system, which I think it's a slow transition. It's just turning a big ship. But I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a transition, and a lot of reimbursement to physicians in hospitals is going to be based on quality, scientifically based measures rather than doing procedures and keeping people in there.
I think in large part that has, I think, a lot to do with us being able to educate ourselves more and seeing that, and I don't want to be taken advantage of that way.
Absolutely.
As a person who's been hospitalized and had surgeries and been in that system and seen the way, I've actually had multiple doctors look me in my face and say, it doesn't matter what you eat, your Crohn's is your Crohn's, it is what it is. And I'm like, you cannot tell me that. How can you actually look me in the face and tell me it doesn't matter what I eat? That's unbelievable. And it's angering. I think more people see that and are like, I don't want to deal with that. That's not acceptable.
No, and that touches on a great point, because I think, there's in general, physicians have not been well educated on nutrition unless they take a special interest. So we're looking at that, and then this age group now that is very tech savvy and can read a lot of stuff online. So I know that some med schools are now starting to incorporate more. Some of them are doing cooking classes and spending more time on nutrition. I hope that lifestyle medicine continues to grow as part of the education of physicians coming out now.
You know, before we get too far from it, back to What the Health real quick, do you agree in your experience with how long, because you've been practicing 20 years now, is that right? Or you get...
Well, yeah, I guess if you start, when I finished med school, it was 20 years. No, I've actually been doing cardiology here in practice for about 12 years.
Okay. And in your experience, what you saw in What the Health, because as it's huge, people are taking it and they're no grains of salt. They're all out the window. They're just like, I believe it, I'm running with it. Do you believe his findings? I do. I mean, I think that any of those any documentary you see, you have to look at things somewhat critically and somewhat skeptically. But I myself have done a lot of reading on this over the past 5 years, and this wasn't my first exposure. So a lot of the literature that he's referring to, I've read that, and it's out there. So in this case, I think that most of what he says is really justified. But the point is well taken. I think anytime you can't believe everything you hear, just like the internet's not always the truth. But I really most of this stuff. I've done a course through Cornell with Dr. Colin Campbell, who did the China study, who was this really landmark population study, which really was one of the initial studies which showed the benefits of a plant-based diet in terms of reducing heart disease and cancers. That's a good one.
So there's a lot of models there. It's very scientifically based. Dr. Michael Breger has a book that's really scientifically based. So they all have the references in these books and many of the books and webinars and whatnot that I've done. So yes, I think that the information there is accurate.
Cool.
That's cool. I definitely got a lot. I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah,
I know I'm coming around to
I
it.
did want to touch on one thing too, because before we get too far from it, one of the things about the blue zones too, I just wanted to mention that. So one of the problems here now is also access to a lot of these foods, particularly with underserved. I mean, I can run to the store and buy some, but not everyone has easy access to buy fruits and vegetables. Grains, they don't have the people to cook them.
Right.
So one of the reasons these populations were so healthy is because this was just their default. It's just what they had available. So one of the thoughts is to try to transition most cities to where everyone has these things easily accessible, not where you're just going to walk into a 7-Eleven and grab a donut or a Reese's sandwich. It's that you have these options available as maybe the default, or in the supermarket, the prepared foods, or the fast food chains are around. Right. If you go to a bigger city, I mean, these things are all over. They're everywhere. Yeah, they're all over the place.
So it's access. And I think, with things like, the Amazon just bought out Whole Foods stuff, where it's like, what is
can drone you some healthy
what does that mean? Like you're going to drop a juice through my ceiling and I'm going to drink it. That'd be cool. But it seems like access is happening, right?
I think it's starting to, but we need to make it more. And for some of these, we were meeting with the Heart Association the other day, and we were trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to do this? And there's going to be programs we're looking at getting to people through their churches. And there was one pastor. She's great. She's actually on this Heart Association board. And she, one of the things that people really care about, especially African American, is going to church. Yeah. And she basically said, if you're going to come here, you need to get your blood pressure checked. And if their blood pressure was high, she's like, you're not coming back to pray unless you go get a treatment.
Ain't nobody going to church at Black church then, because everybody got high blood pressure.
That's a great way to start.
Absolutely.
And it's great to get that. And they have nurses that every weekend they have nurses there. I think they have 12 nurses.
That's monumental, though, especially for a Black church, man, because that's something I wanted to ask you about selfishly is like, just because I'm diabetes runs it, rampant, high blood pressure, cholesterol, like everything. My mom passed away from cancer, my dad from a heart attack. It's like everything's kind of looking at me, and I'm like, all right, Malik, you really the odds are not in your favor. This ain't Hunger Games, but
you have some control over it. That's the thing to know, and you're young enough where that hasn't taken its toll yet. Yeah. So plenty of time.
You said that so doctor-like. So it hasn't taken its toll yet.
It's true, though.
You have 10 days to live.
You haven't had a heart attack yet, and you don't have cancer.
God, I need some water. I need to drink some water. Give me a juice.
Here we go.
We got some water.
I'll take care of stuff.
Oh, my God. No, it's two big things already. Just access and...
But this is where to empower someone like you or a patient that because your parents had this I actually had a friend in the gym this morning. His dad had heart disease and cancer. I mean, he's had it all. Mm-hmm. I've seen him for a few years, and this guy is showing me his cholesterol profile. It's amazing, and he exercises all the time. So it's not something that you're stricken with.
I'm not doomed to.
Yeah, and that's why What the Health Dude did the documentary was because heart disease all through the family and everything.
Yeah.
But something that I've struggled with big time, and I think that a lot of people, and I don't know if you've seen this with your patients and stuff, a lot of times it's like, you want to get healthier and you have the tools at your disposal, but for some reason there's just this thing in your brain, you're just like, I know I shouldn't eat cheese, but pizza's so good, so I'm just going to eat it, you know, and I know my mom, died of cancer, and I know the heart attack, but I've got time, it's fine. When really, I know for me, I've had to literally train myself, tell myself in my head, hey, you have control over this. You need to change. Right. My instinct, for whatever reason, I know I shouldn't have that thing, but then I go have it anyway. And so I've learned you need to retrain yourself, and that's a very intentional, difficult process. I've spent 28 years of my life doing something the wrong way. Now we've got to start doing it the right way, and that takes time. And I think being patient with yourself is hugely important in that process.
And that's an important point. So there's two things I would say. One is, you don't need to make a transition overnight. I mean, you're going to fail. You're going to set yourself. It's like trying to quit smoking overnight. It's very hard to do. But the second thing is too, which I really try to tell my patients is, I really try to tell them don't think of it as like you can't eat this, you can't eat that. It's like you can eat all these things. These are all things that you probably never eat. I mean, the calories that we get from fruits and vegetables in our country is very low. It's like less than 5 or 10%. The most commonly consumed vegetable is a potato, and those are fried. So there are so many things that people aren't eating that are healthy. So
they're yummy.
They're delicious, and there are delicious ways you can prepare them. So I really try to say, listen, there's a whole world of culinary delightfulness that you're not even exploring here. And I think when you start to do that, as we talked about before, you crave some of these other things less. Like if I didn't ever intend on just not eating meat. I said, I'll just eat less of it. But as I ate less of it, when I ate it, I didn't feel well. And the same thing with cheese. Like sometimes I want to snack on cheese. If there's a great cheese platter, we're having pizza, then fine, I'll eat it. I'm not that strict, but I really don't want it. If I get a pizza with cheese, I don't like a lot of cheese on it. It's just not appealing to me. So I think your tastes change over the time where you don't feel good when you eat these things.
It changes, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably the key, is changing your palate. Because when I get into my zones, when I get into my zones of like being really healthy, when I crave working out, I crave like the feeling, it's euphoric. And two, I don't crave like all the time, at least, like all the like unhealthy stuff. Because then you actually feel the change in your body. I have less energy, you know. So then you start becoming addicted to that feeling, the good feeling. Like, I feel good, you know. It's just very easy. I feel like there's nothing easier in this world than getting fat. It's just very easy to.
Oh, it is.
It's just like I could do it. Like it's the best thing I'm good at. It's just it happens, right? But I could work like 6 months, lose 30 pounds. Feel great, and literally give me like one bad week, and I'm like, I feel like I just reset. I literally just reset.
Yeah.
But for you, it could be little changes, like when you go to Chipotle next time, don't get sour cream or don't get cheese. Like, don't get one of them, and then the next time maybe you won't get.
I won't do double meat. I'll just start out with no double meat.
That's perfect.
That's a good place to start.
Do double beans and half the meat. How about
I went to Chipotle the other day, and when I got home, I told my husband, I got a burrito bowl today. First of all, I didn't get a burrito. I got a bowl. And second of all, I did not get any sour cream on it. I got a little bit of cheese, but I didn't get. He was like, wow, I'm so proud of you.
And they have that sofritos there, which is really good too.
I did have sofrito half chicken that time. Actually.
So before we head out of here, I just want to ask you just like a random question. What do you think about Obamacare?
Gosh,
Trump care, Obamacare, which one you like?
I don't know enough about Trump. I think there are concepts, or the concepts which maybe now haven't been set in place with Obamacare. Some of them are good, like trying to get everyone insured. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the method they used was the best way to do it. One of the things that I've seen is that a lot of people have gotten insurance through the exchanges, still really can't. They basically have catastrophic insurance, but they can't pay for the day-to-day stuff because they have very high deductibles.
Okay.
Yeah, really high. I mean, $5,000, $10,000, so people can't pay for them. So they'll come to see me and they can't pay anyway. So it's like, it doesn't really give them access. So I still think there are better ways to, and I'm not saying that I have the solutions. I just think there are better ways that we need to take care of our people. And the thing is, we spend so much money on healthcare here. What I'm really trying to promote is if we keep people healthy, if we change their lifestyle, we would save so much money. Most of our money is spent on heart failure, cancer, and coronary disease. And then you look at diabetes and kidney disease. Those are probably the top 5 things. And all those are related to lifestyle.
Control with that.
What is up with, it's obviously close to home, but like, what the heck is up with cancer everywhere? Like, it just seems like I can just assume that I'm going to die from cancer one day.
So much of it is lifestyle. What? I mean, if you look at the associations of eating, animal protein, but particularly the kind of animal protein we get in our country now, how it's produced, a lot of hormones and antibiotics. If you look
inflammation.
A lot of that goes back to inflammation, even coronary disease. So, but diabetes, heart disease, cancer. I mean, if you read some of these books, the China study, for instance, they make a really nice association there. So, without a doubt, I think a large portion of it is lifestyle, and there's obviously a genetic component. But you can. They talk about in these books, a lot of it is, the genetics is planting the grass and the food is fertilizing it. So if you take away the fertilizer, the grass isn't going to grow. So you may have the genes there, but the cancer's not going to grow.
Predisposed, but it doesn't mean that it's a death sentence.
Correct.
Yeah, you go to because obviously in other countries it's not. They're dying from like preventable diseases, so for me it just seems like, I'm trying to figure out like what is it, and it seems like it's against the meat, which is weird.
If you look at the data from the China study, though, it's basically the incidence of coronary disease and cancer were almost zero. They were almost zero in people that didn't eat meat, So and then it's not a black or white. There's a large gray zone, and there were people who can adjust their diets and reduce the incidence quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for just not overdoing it, right? Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like cliches, like it's everything, just don't go too crazy.
I think the beautiful thing about what you said in the sit down is the, the preventable stuff is like in nutrition, because I really do. I wanted to sit down and talk to you about like the health system and stuff, but really like it just rewinds back to the bigger picture of like, if you just live a healthy lifestyle, you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to see me as much. And I think it's cool that you're saying like you want to see people less if you had it your way, right? Like obviously not like money wise.
Put me out of business. That would be. I don't see that happening.
You're doing your job, but that means that you're doing your job, right?
Job helping people,
right? Like if anyone in any field that's trying to help people does their job right, like fully, right? If actually happened, like if a pastor saved everybody he wanted to save, and if then that's obviously the goal, right? I mean, so let's hope that you're out of a job next year, huh?
All right, let's do it, man. Find something else. Go back to school.
You better become a cheese maker. Oh, you can do one of the things. Have you seen the cheese? Have you seen the cheese where they melt the cheese and then they?
Yes,
that's evil.
Raclette.
They
I
knife the cheese off and put it on. America does a lot with cheese, man. We've talked a lot about cheese this episode.
Wait, I know we're finishing, but I did want to ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
Why cardiology of all the things you could have gone?
I would probably give you a different reason than when I chose it. When I chose it, I actually had no intention of going into cardiology. When I kind of started doing some rotations later in my residency, I really enjoyed it. Part of it's a very innovative field, very science-based. So it's one of the most evidence-based fields of medicine. Almost everything we do has guidelines, which are evidence-based, a lot of studies supporting all of our decisions. And it's constantly changing. There's always new medications. It's a preventable disease. It's a disease where if people have it, you can make them feel better. Your goals of making them feel better, you can save their lives. There's a lot you can do. And that's one of the reasons I enjoyed it. There's a lot of physiology involved in it. So it's a great field. Now I look at it from more the preventative mind that, we can completely prevent this disease. And then my goal is not so much at all the technology that's out there. So I'm using lifestyle to help reduce the number of patients I see.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thanks,
thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
Pleasure being here.
I will hopefully don't have to see you ever out in your office ever
until the cooking podcast.
Yes, we're gonna do.
Seriously,
this is the third time he's mentioned it. We're doing this. I will be your sous chef.
We'll bring it back. We'll do like one of those morning show things. And we're here, right?
I'm game. I'm totally game.
I'm so excited.
Oh, dude, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. Do you have like any social media that you want people to follow you on? Or do you want to kind of stay anonymous?
I do have. I have an Instagram. I have Facebook. I actually have a page on Facebook called Jumpstart to Plant-Based Nutrition, which I a lot of times post recipes, articles on health.
So wait, say that again. What?
It's called Jumpstart to Plant-Based Nutrition.
And where is that on? That's
it's on Facebook.
On Facebook. Okay.
Yep. So I try to post a lot of in that hooks in. There's different vegan Southwest Florida pages. So a lot of it's just based on nutrition articles. I try to post recipes all the time that I think people would enjoy. So look me up on there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it. We'll be, in touch with you. I might come do some CrossFit with you.
Keeping
All right,
that
man.
sound very
Thanks for watching. Guys. Peace.
Bye.